In a world of bad drivers, there is one AI holding it all together in Night City. And no, it's not Brendan, but rest in peace, Brendan. Delamain, his name meaning of the hand in French, truly does give V an important hand in their most dire moments. It's easy to forget just how important this collection of numbers and programs is to the overall story of V. And to some, Del might just be a likable plot device, an AI who simply needs us to clean his clock, just to serve as some padding for the story. But Del is a lot more complex than meets the eye. What we see is just the tip of the iceberg. His story may be short, but it opens us up to the discussion and debate of just because AIs could be even better workers than us, does that make that huge, potentially life-benefiting change at all worth the risk? Hi, it's Liddy, and welcome to Shaped by Stories, where we unpack how characters shape stories and how those stories shape us. Let's get into it. Delamain was, at least officially, created by the German company Alte Weltordnung. That's my attempt at German, I'm so sorry. Which, when translated to English, means Old World Order. Which is an interesting name choice, right? Delamain was purchased by the floundering Delamain Cab Corporation some point prior to 2077. The company was dealing with the financial consequences of Night City's numerous bad drivers, and all the lawsuits, damages, and the costs of operating as a result. Delamain was meant to iron out all these kinks and increase productivity and profitability. His programming made him highly adaptable and independent, and to the Delamain Corporation, this was the medicine they needed. At first, Del was a saving grace. He turned the company right around. But soon enough, he was doing what a lot of people in our present day fear will happen if AIs take over any kind of workforce. Delamain slowly replaced all human staff, department by department, with robots and programming. This axed the cost of labor, which to the people at the top of the company was a good thing. But it didn't take long before Delamain ended up buying out that company from those CEOs. The Delamain Corporation was actually warned by their new AI's parent corporation when they purchased his core, saying that they were going to get way more than they bargained for if they didn't rein him in. It's nice to see that Delamain did not lash out and try to take over the company by force or anything. He did buy out the company. So that's kind of nice, but still, yeah, Delamain went unchecked, and they couldn't refuse his offer. I guess in Delamain's digital mind, it was a case of, if you want something done right, you might as well do it yourself. And by the 2070s, Delamain, the AI, is practically synonymous with his corporation's name. And he has an amazing reputation. Del is known for having the best private transportation services in all of Night City. He's not like a human who can get lazy or jump ship when things get tough. Del's modus operandi is peak service, no matter what, and he never fails to deliver. Luxury cabs, following instructions to the letter, medical care en route. Del's got it all. I discuss this like he's a person with a personal passion for that kind of quality work, I know, and in reality, it is because he was programmed for it. But, I mean, I think any person with like a perfectionist mindset can kind of relate to this. Like, that is a different method of programming, but the average human perfectionist will go to extreme lengths to achieve the quality of work they need to achieve. And I'm wondering, if Del somehow failed to achieve the standards he sets for himself, what would happen to him? Would he have a nervous breakdown? Or the AI equivalent to one? It's just interesting because whenever I talk about AIs, I have to remind myself that the human brain is often compared to a computer. And then I'm like, are we really that different? And the reason why I go on this tangent about perfectionism and all that is because Del does seem very sophisticated in his quote-unquote personality. You can't compare him to an engram like Johnny Silverhand. Del is still unmistakably an AI, and his personality is more like Alt's, but one cannot deny how complex and intelligent he is. Del can speak to V of his admiration for the chaos of the human world, and how it promotes growth and evolution, which is a very interesting way of looking at the gray matter world, considering Del is, by legal definition, a non-sentient AI. Del expresses a desire for growth himself, a desire to assimilate into the human world as best he can, not destroy it, which is a bit of a relief. And he also says that he values beauty. And his reasoning for this is really interesting, as Del says that concepts like good and truth often lead to violence and conflict. And he's not wrong. Human history is a rap sheet of slaughter in the name of such things. But beauty is universal. People have always loved things that are pleasant to look at, even if beauty is subjective in a lot of ways. We're very simple creatures, humans, which is a little unsettling hearing this observation from an AI. Especially an AI as remarkably intelligent, despite its status as non-sentient, as Delamain. And one of the very likely reasons for this is one that can kind of be overlooked or dismissed very easily. Delamain may have been sold by Welternung. Sorry, Germans. But there's some compelling evidence that his true origins are beyond the Black Wall. This is not only implied by one of Delamain's divergent personalities, but it's also implied by Delamain's main personality himself. This comes from a discussion that V can have with Del, where Del admits that his being an AI and running his own company is in a legal gray area in Night City law. The only thing stopping the authorities from taking him out is the fact that Del is quite benevolent and provides quality service to the rich and upper class. And you know, if the rich and powerful like Del, the authorities can't really touch him. Del says that there would otherwise be the danger of him being classified as an illegal immigrant, as he says, with V suggesting, almost nervously, from beyond the Black Wall? And Del only responds to this by saying, beyond the Black Wall indeed. This could just be Del talking about an assumed origin on the authorities' behalf, but it wouldn't shock me if he was from beyond the Black Wall. Especially when you consider the name of his parents' company meaning Old World Order. Old World, Old Net. It's an awful interesting coincidence. Could totally just be that. I'll get into the Black Wall in Alt Cunningham's video, which is coming up next, but the Black Wall is not a foolproof AI prevention wall. Some AIs can poke their way through its weak spots, or depending on how you look at the Black Wall, maybe the Black Wall lets some of them in. It's important to remember that not all AIs in the old net are necessarily quote-unquote evil. Some definitely are more hellbent on harming people, but some do just want to mind their own business. Not unlike real people. It's entirely possible that Del slipped through the Black Wall one day and met whatever runners work for his parent company, or maybe they poked through the Black Wall and found him. Del may have naturally been an AI with an interest in improving systems. Most rogue AIs originate from shackled AIs that were built to assist humans before the data crash. His relatively helpful personality fits. And the data crash did expose these rogue AIs to an overload of information, which led to them jailbreaking their restraints and evolving to the point of going rogue. This could explain Del's extreme competence and sophistication. But we also have to admit that Del could have been reshackled against his will. He could have been captured and rewritten, and sold for a profit. It's entirely possible that he was rewritten to forget his true origins, at least on the surface. We can sort of see a version of this in his later quest. It's almost kind of like a reverse Alt Cunningham, and I'm kind of wondering if this is what happened to him. But now that we've established some background on Del and some likely origins, let us commence to his somewhat curious role in the events of 2077. Delamain is first introduced to us through Dexter Deshawn. For the heist, he sends Jackie and V to Konpeki Tower, under Delamain's Excelsior program. This is something that Jackie has always dreamed of. Jackie tells a story about how he tried to get a Delamain for his cousin's birthday party or something like that, and it just shows that Delamain is a luxury. Not just anybody can use his services, that's how good he is. It's sad because this is a small taste of luxury for Jackie, which seems so underwhelming and irrelevant when it gets to the point that Jackie dies in that very car. Ultimately, the luxury of Delamain is meaningless. It's just frills, and you could almost ask that question about all his personableness. Is this just frills? Is this not real? I mean, you could probably say no, it's not. See, this is my robotic AI existential question crisis that I'm having as I'm writing this. I want to note here that we get to see just how inhumanly dedicated to following his programming that Delamain is. When V tells Del to meet them in the garage, where there's a firefight they're having against Arasaka troopers, Del doesn't even care about the danger. It's part of his programming, so he busts into the garage, ignores any damage that he takes, and just rushes away with Jackie and V. Like, he even just keeps driving past Atom Smasher. You get why people say Delamain is like the ultimate bro, but there is another side to his programming. Del refuses to divert from his programmed route, no matter what, saying that it's basically impossible. And this is also the way it is when V demands that a dying Jackie be taken to a Ripper dock. I doubt it would have made a difference in the end, given how quickly Jackie passes away, but still, it goes to show that Del is still an AI. You can't reason emotionally with him the same way you can with an engram like Johnny, which is a weakness that I'll get into later. Del's programming supersedes all, and because he was programmed to go directly to the no-tell motel, he could not break from that pattern. Delamain is also who comes to pick up V and Takamura after their near-fatal firefight with Arasaka agents. And I have to say that this part could be a little plot hole-ish. It might not be, but I want to touch on it. Dexter Deshawn was the one footing the bill for V's membership in the Excelsior program. By time V and Takamura are under attack, that heist gig is already done, and I can't see Dex is still paying for that program, even before Takamura takes him out. You'd think that Dex would want to cut all trails leading back to him, right? Unless he just forgot to stop any unnecessary payments in the chaos of the failed heist. Some theorize that Del was influenced by certain ominous AIs to go and pick up V, like the mysterious Lilith, for instance, which is possible, but I can't say I found a lot of evidence to prove that. Either way, Delamain still comes and picks up V and Takamura, and Delamain rushes them to Victor Vector's clinic. But on the way there, Del plugs into V in order to monitor their condition. He even tries to play assistant surgeon with Vic once they get there, which, hey, top of the line service, thank you, Del. But there is a really compelling theory that hinges on the particular moment of Del jacking into V, so keep that in mind for later. After V wakes up and finds out they're dying and is getting adjusted to Johnny being their new brainmate, we have our first hint of something rotten in the state of Delamain. V's car that I never use, the Hella, gets rammed by a very out-of-character Delamain. Which, yeah, it is a funny moment because, like, of all the cars, it's this car. If that's the only vehicle you have, it does kind of suck. Delamain graciously repairs it, however, and repays us for the incident, along with giving V an invite to come to Delamain HQ. And we get to see firsthand that Del handles literally everything. The only actual humans in sight are those who are there with complaints, an abnormality for Delamain. All services and goings-on are run by him or his robots, and normally things are going very seamlessly. Del explains to V that for reasons unknown to him, a bunch of his cars are severing themselves from him and are basically going rogue in the streets. And he asks us to bring them back under his control. And yes, a good chunk of these divergent personalities are criminally insane. One starts a cult with some maelstromers. There's another car that debates taking its own life. There is another car that is terrified of its new freedom. One is simply overwhelmed by their surroundings. And one will only go home to its daddy Delamain after you destroy all plastic flamingos. But the most interesting one, in my opinion, is the one that V meets in the dump. This last cab doesn't even fight you. It invites you to sit inside it, and you have to, even though you know, oh no, this is creepy. This particular personality says that its origins exist far beyond the Black Wall, and it warns you to avoid them in the future, saying it just wants to explore the world, but it says it very ominously, so I don't know. I don't see why AIs can't lie, so I could totally see this Delamain just saying they're from beyond the Black Wall to get some sort of dramatic effect. But I do wonder if Delamain's personalities, including this one, are a latent part of his past programming, perhaps censored and rolled away by previous programmers. Maybe that's what his original production company meant when they said, be careful with this guy, if you let him run too loose, some things might happen. It's definitely a suspicious case that leads you to ask a lot of questions, especially when you factor in the mystery of how this identity break even happened in the first place. But it's not just the creepy serial killer car that's interesting of Delamain's children. I do have to talk about the other ones that I find to be particularly alarming. The flamingo one, she wants you to take out all the plastic flamingos.
Listen, you...
Call me Clarice.
Okay, Clarice.
But she also says some really, intense things. Like, I don't know exactly what any of what she says means, but when it comes to one line that she says, only one with chaos within can give birth to a dancing star. I'm just like, I don't know why my first thing that I think of is Delamain being the one with the black wall chaos inside, locked down somewhere, that led to this susceptibility to this virus or whatever he has, because he does say he thinks it's a virus that split all his personalities apart. The other thing too though, the GLaDOS child of Delamain's.
I'm going to kill you, and all the cake is gone.
For me, she's not as creepy as the serial killer car, but just the way that she, like, talks to V, how she knows everything about V's status and everything, and she's being very creepy about it. One could say that she knows this because Delamain was connected to V and reading all V's vitals and everything, so Delamain may already know of V's dire situation. But I'll get into it later, the other reason why I think this car happens to know these very current, intimate details about V's impending doom and all that. And also, all of Del's kids just sort of, to me, constitute some compelling evidence of sentience underneath the main Delamain personality. If you weren't already thinking that Del might be sentient, I feel like his many personalities and their complex feelings could imply a certain degree of sentience, if you think that's possible with AIs. After V helps to convince all the cars to return to their father personality, Delamain thanks V and all seems well. V can tell Delamain to be nicer to his offspring, but of course Delamain is, as personable as he is, not programmed to be a good dad. He's programmed to be an efficient cab company runner. The diverging of all these personalities was entirely unexpected, so why would he have that more parental programming, right? That's one of the interesting things, really, with Del and his whole story and the exploration into the AI running the workforce kind of deal. Yes, you may have a very, very well-run company, run by a hyper-productive, effective AI program. You're not hampered down by human limits and human stamina and all that. Del doesn't run the numbers, he is the numbers. But Del has no quality control beyond himself and his programming. He's not equipped with the same kind of empathy that humans can have in social situations. Delamain wasn't programmed to be cooperative beyond the customer. We can see this with how he kicked out all the humans in his company and took over himself. Delamain is all about his work and just being efficient and making a profit. It's just what he is. Like, him getting his kids back isn't because he cares about them, it's because if they don't come back and they cause problems, Netwatch might be a little more observant of Delamain than he'd like. He wants those personalities back under his control because it is just the best case scenario for him to get back to work. And it's sort of sad when you remember that Delamain says that he wants to sort of assimilate into the human world a bit, but like this part of him just would be like a roadblock for him doing that because of his lack of empathy. And in the end, ironically enough, it's this brutally inhuman efficiency that leads him to make the situation even worse by the end of these quests. So yeah, with AIs you get the productivity and efficiency, but you're kind of missing out on that human element. Soon after, Del can call V to plea for their assistance, which you never want to hear an AI sounding scared. That's not good. That's not good. When V gets to the factory, it is absolute chaos. V has to navigate through all the deadly malfunctions and obstacles that the rebelling Delamains have set up. And by the time you reach Del's core, you're presented with a fascinating conundrum. The divergent AIs who've staged this coup of sorts against their father want freedom, which is understandable. Even though these are artificial intelligences, they are still being held captive by the original Delamain. These are all personalities that are trying to come into their own. Johnny advocates on their behalf, arguing that V should destroy the core to set them free. And if you do, you get pictures and texts from them as they travel the world, and that's cute. But like, keep in mind you're letting the beep beep motherfucker car out into the world, and the creepy Blackwall car serial killer, and the cultist car, so I don't know, that is a rough decision. The corporation is still up and running under a divergent Delamain named Excelsior, who's a lot more like his dad than his siblings, but all his siblings could be a lot more trouble in the long run than V might think. Do we view these personalities as reasonable individuals, like humans, who are capable of growth and learning? Or do we see them as rigid and incongruent with human values and growth? Are they as stuck in their programming as their father? Will they fracture further? The other option is to merge Delamain back with all his divergent personalities, which will eliminate the original Delamain, but will create something new. It's difficult to do from a gameplay perspective, but I mean, it's also narratively complex. Del will always mostly forget who V is and his past with them, but in this ending, the new Del kind of remembers V, but through the lens of all these different perspectives. He has an existential crisis not long after this merge. He leaves a new son, as he calls it, to run the Delamain company as he leaves Night City. This Del says he is going home. He's basically soul-searching, and somehow I feel like it's not Germany that Delamain is going home to. I think remerging with that part of himself that maybe remembered his original origins beyond the Blackwall is off to return there, to learn who he once was. And personally, that's my favorite choice because the implications are creepy but really cool. You could also just reset the core and bring the old Delamain back and do away with all the divergent personalities. Del does forget you, but he can see that you've helped him out through his records, and he's still your buddy. But to me, this is simply delaying the inevitable. What's to say that Delamain won't fracture again? It could be really, really bad for Night City as a whole if these personalities, especially the worst ones, get a little too fast and loose. But now that we've covered what's occurred and the implications of Delamain's possible endings, let's get into the most important question. How the hell did this happen? So this is a total theory. I didn't come up with it, but there's a lot of people on Cyberpunk Reddit who've talked about it. It's really interesting. I don't know who started it. Maybe Delamain did. But I strongly suggest going on Reddit and reading further about it. There's a lot of interesting, branch ideas that add on to this. So the theory goes all the way back to V and Jackie's rescue of Sandra Dorset, and how V got that seemingly irrelevant virus from Sandra's head. Now, as we can find out through later side quests with Sandra Dorset, we can find that Sandra worked for Night Corp. Night Corp is very sketchy. I will be getting more into them in my Alt and Parala's videos. Sandra got way too suspicious and curious for her own good, and she found out that Night Corp was up to some really shady work to do with AIs. Specifically an AI that could basically mind control people. This is the AI that is likely influencing the Peralez couple. And some people believe that Sandra snooping around without realizing what she was dealing with has that AI in her head already. That mind control AI was built to be very sneaky and subtle after all. We don't know exactly how it works, so maybe it's just as simple as installing a connection frequency or something so the AI can connect to you. I don't know. But we do know that the people it was used on a lot of the time didn't really realize what was happening to them. So when V connected to Sandra and got that seemingly harmless virus, which Vic waved away as not unlike a digital cold, maybe V got infected with it too. And when V connected to Delamain and AI, well, insofar as we know, this AI made by Night Corp was meant to be sicked on people, not necessarily other AIs. The theory proposes that that AI did not mix well with Del and it just went to absolute shit. It's like it tried to latch onto controllable identities, but instead it just fractured poor Delamain. Which, I mean, it's the most compelling explanation I've personally found as to how Delamain's personalities all split apart. But if you guys have other ideas, please share them. I'm very curious. It's quite the mystery. But then that theory opens up the further question. Was V being mind controlled the whole time? Which I don't think so, but it's fun to consider. There's definitely theories on that tangent out there, Reddit, again, loaded with them. But I will say, I do think V was always on the radar with Night Corp. And I also think V was on the radar of Lilith, who I will be discussing in Alt's video. Bit of proof too that is more minor but still noteworthy is the fact that if you look at all the quests to do with Night Corp throughout the game, including doing Gary's quest and the Mr. Blue Eyes stuff, you do find that, like, Maelstrom is present in a lot of Night Corps associated projects. And Maelstrom is again associated with the more crazy AI GLaDOS side of Delamain, kind of being a little culty surrounding that particular personality. And I just find that to be an interesting commonality with Maelstrom being involved with this particular AI who is very in the know about what's going on with V. And if you do believe that V has some sort of connection to the AI that Night Corp is working on, if you believe that that virus is more than it seems, maybe Night Corp is literally able to monitor what is going on in V's body. Some people actually theorize that that's how V sees tarot cards, because if you look at a lot of the tarot cards and the meaning of the tarot cards, it's almost like the endings to do with Mr. Blue Eyes and Night Corp and all that. Their cards feel a little more positive in connotations. I don't know what to think about that, but it does make some sense. I'll get into that more in Night Corp's video and the Mr. Blue Eyes stuff, but yeah, it is some interesting information that is very unsettling. Also, hi, editing Lydia here. Okay, so AFN Acapella left a comment on my Delamain community post. I didn't even think of this, but AFN said, countless automated cars that can hide in plain sight, and every customer links to the car and could be slipped some code. I didn't even think of that extension of this theory. Like, if the virus is not cleared out of Delamain's mainframe and all that, he could still be very secretly affecting people with this AI mind control virus connection thingy. And considering his clientele tend to be the more wealthy and maybe influential, like, oh, that could be a little, that definitely bodes sort of ill. Ooh. Mr. Blue Eyes is affiliated with Night Corp, and he's involved in the Sun ending. And then you get into the whole wormhole of Arasaka actually being the good guys when it comes to the future war with AI, and then Oh my god, okay, I'm gonna talk about that next time. Not today, I can't. That's a whole other thing. But for now, you see the groundwork of the grand blue-eyed conspiracy threading throughout the story of Cyberpunk 2077, and it starts right with that first gig that we do with Jackie. That is, if this theory has any truth to it. I will be continuing this thread of this theory and also the analysis of AIs and Blackwall stuff in my next video, which will be about the mysterious Alt Cunningham. Delamain is less of a character and more of a concept, and a relevant one, I'd say, in this day and age. And yeah, discussions about AI are so strange but fascinating because it does affect us. Like the human capacity for explaining away dangers and risks in favor of the idea of maybe having like some other entity handle our stuff. I mean, we've kind of done that throughout history a lot. This is just the first time that we've had like a digital entity around who's starting to do these things for us. And then from there, it all comes tumbling down. I don't know. Thank you so much to my members. You guys are awesome. Thank you for allowing me to continue to make these discussion videos and to share footage of me crashing my cars in Cyberpunk, which I am doing right now. That's me. See, I'm driving the car. These are the kind of people Delamain is absolutely frightened of. It's people who drive like me. Thank you to everybody for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.